strengthen partnerships at the county level of government, and also to provide an opportunity to members and staff of county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. So this is a motion that it already kicked off on the floor of the Senate, that is yesterday. The debate was concluded on this motion, and this afternoon a question will be put with regards to this matter on the approval of sittings of the Senate to be held in Busia County. The senators will also this afternoon consider a motion by the Committee on Delegated Legislation, and this is with regards to its report on its consideration of the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024 and the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules 2024. This is a motion that will be moved by the Chairperson Select Committee on Delegated Legislation, that is Honorable Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya. That is the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Jeffa Kingi. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, tukusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba tuwajalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote atakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, we have quorum. Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The House has not quorated as provided for in the House Standing Order number 39 that at the commencement of the sitting, the quorum for the Senate shall be 15 members inside the chambers. And as you can see on your screen, it clearly indicates that there are not enough, or there are not enough members to quorate to that number that is required, that is 15 senators. So the Standing Order number 40 indicates that if there is no quorum, then the bell, once the prayer has been said and the chair taken, then the Speaker shall direct that the bell be rung for 10 minutes. This is the quorum bell, of course, to give room to the members who may be within the precincts of Parliament to make their way into the chambers, and that is what we shall be seeing until the quorum is achieved. As you can see, those are members making their way inside the chambers. So once the House attains the required number, then I will, without further delay, hand you over to the proceedings of the Senate this afternoon. The motion on the report of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024 and the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules 2024 is one of the business that is set to be transacted for the Senate to adopt the report of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation, which has resolved to annul the two proposed laws. One is the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024, legal notice number 49 of 2024, as well as the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules 2024, legal notice number 48 of 2024. Now, these are two pieces of proposed laws that were forwarded to the Senate for consideration. But in its report, the Delegated Legislation Committee, or the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation, resolved to annul, citing a number of reasons, with one of the reasons being lack of public participation. So this is a bill that, with regards to the business that is to be transacted on it this afternoon, is that the members will be going into division. Debate on it was interrupted on Wednesday, the 10th of July, the year 2024, in the afternoon sitting. So this afternoon, once members get to this particular business, then they will be going into division to look into the matters therein and make a decision. These two, all right, that is the quorum bell that is off now. The quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over.
Clerk, you may proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Honorable Senator Mwaruma. That statement is dropped. Statement pursuant to Standing Order 57-1, the Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1 to hereby present the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, the 16th of July, 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, as honorable senators are aware, the country stands at a precipice. The unrest and protests that have been witnessed over the last 3 weeks have gripped our country and threatened to lead to chaos and anarchy. The Senate, recognizing the gravity of this situation, introduced a motion during the morning sitting of Wednesday, the 3rd of July, 2024, to deliberate on the current state of the nation. This motion, that as the leadership of the Senate we resolve not to limit debate, the Speaker has also been magnanimous to give all the senators more time to conclude their contribution. Honourable senators have been sharing their perspectives to this motion, and these combined efforts hold the power to steer our country through these turbulent times and towards a brighter and more prosperous future. The Senate has also been presented with an opportunity to develop strategies, policies that will spur the necessary social, economic and political transformation in our country. I have no doubt that from this crisis we will emerge stronger and more determined to better the lives of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, sir, with respect to the business of the Senate before the House for the week commencing Tuesday, the 11th, sorry, I'll take that again, Mr. Speaker, sir. With respect to the business of the Senate, honourable senators will recall that during the special sitting held on Tuesday, the 11th of June 2024, the Senate considered and passed the following bills: the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, the Statutory Instruments Bill, the IEBC Amendment Bill, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, the County Government's Additional Allocation Bill, the County Licensing Uniform Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2022, the IEBC Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2024, have since been assented to by His Excellency the President. The County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 2024, is yet to be assented to for obvious reasons. Mr. Speaker, you know that with the rejection of the Finance Bill, there has to be a new CARA and Division of Revenue. Of course, will come first, and additionally, we will have to consider CARA afresh. That's why the CARA that we passed on the 11th of June is yet to be assented to. With respect to the county government's additional election bill, the bill is as well awaiting consideration by the National Assembly. I take this opportunity to applaud all the honorable senators for the work that they have been able to do so far. However, there still remains much more to be done. For this reason, I implore senators to prioritize their presence in the chamber so that we are able to make progress on the pending business, which includes 49 bills that are pending conclusion, of which 42 are at the second reading stage and 7 are at the committee of the whole stage, which I want to plead with the honorable whips and the leadership of both sides of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, that if possible, we can conclude on those bills next week, Mr. Speaker. There are 21 motions also for us to consider. There are 20 petitions that are due for reporting by various select committees. 369 statements are pending before our respective standing committees. These are statements that have been sought by members of this House, Mr. Speaker, and it is our sincere hope that we may actually conclude on this business. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senate Business Committee will meet on Tuesday, the 16th of July, 2024, to consider the business for the week. The tentative business for Tuesday will include business not concluded from today's order paper, as well as the business indicated in the notice paper that is appended to today's order paper. The tentative business schedule for Wednesday, 17th of July 2024, the morning sitting, will include the scheduled questions as approved by SBC, as well as various motions. The summary of questions are as follows. A question by Senator Sifuna to the National Treasury, to the Cabinet Secretary for Labor, by Senator Wakoli, and so on and so forth. The business for Wednesday, 17 July 2024, afternoon sitting, will include business not concluded on Tuesday, 16 July, and the following. The Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, the Land Amendment Bill, the County Oversight and Accountability Bill, the County Civic Education Bill, the County Statistics Bill, the Intergovernmental Relations Amendment Bill, the County Assembly's Pension Scheme Bill, and the following motions. One is the establishment of a national teaching and referral hospital in Kenya, development of a policy and law for social risk management in infrastructure development projects in Kenya, county governments to set aside land for planting indigenous trees, stoppage of funds to Isiolo County due to failure by the governor to honor Senate summons. Then 11, the projected business for Thursday, the 18th of July, 2024, will be business not concluded in the order paper for Tuesday, Wednesday, and any other business scheduled by the SBC. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, it's good just to mention that as at the rise of the House yesterday, there is only one senator who is yet to speak to the motion that I had mentioned earlier on the state of the nation. And that was by design, Mr. Speaker, because as a leadership, we had agreed that once all the members have spoken, our members of staff have been taking into consideration the various ideas and proposals that have been brought forward as ways of moving the country forward and healing the nation and bridging the divide by all the senators that have spoken to this motion, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that eventually we have concrete ideas. It is our intention, Mr. Speaker, that we are going to invite various institutions and constitutional commissions, Mr. Speaker, to come and engage this House based on the proposals that have come from the various members of this House, Mr. Speaker. However, I don't intend to dwell much into it because we are yet to retreat as a leadership of the House, where we will come up with far-reaching recommendations by Tuesday next week, Mr. Speaker. Then at that point, we will allow the gentleman that is yet to speak, the Senator for Laikipia, to move the motion in the amended form, and we rise and vote on it, then move forward with the proposals that have been made. I thank honorable senators for abiding by the request that we made at that particular time to allow each senator the opportunity to speak to this motion. I appreciate. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate. Thank you.
Senator Boni, you know you cannot rise on a point of order. Proceed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I thank the leader of the majority for the communication. Whereas I have the latitude to seek clarification from him through other means, but because he's made what concerns me in public is fair that I seek that clarification. He has said, Mr. Speaker, that the Kara bill has not been assented to and that we will have to redo it. Mr. Speaker, could you confirm whether the President has sent such a memorandum? And if he has not, in our understanding, what would necessitate Kara to be returned if DORA has been assented to? Because Kara flows from DORA. So if DORA is an act, how then can Kara be invalidated, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I say this because we are very conscious of the fact that our counties are constrained and the money that we were able to give the counties in the DORA bill, many of the delegations believe it should remain there, Mr. Speaker. Could you clarify?
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I am not sure whether the whip listened properly. I said I'm not certain whether Division of Revenue bill, as was passed by this House, has been assented to. I have no recollection. Unless he has that information, that is something that he may wish to clarify to me. And I said Kara is a product, like he has rightfully put, of Division of Revenue. And if Division of Revenue is yet to be assented to, because of reasons that he very well knows, then it follows that we will have to make fresh considerations of all those matters. Therefore, I am not sure which Division of Revenue that he's referring to, that has been assented to. And if it has been, then, Mr. Speaker, I will await further communication from how I normally get it. And he has access to that information. I don't know why he chooses to use the floor to seek it, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Chair, I personally find no fault in the manner in which Senator Khalwale has chosen to address this matter, because it is not a matter that is just between him and the leader of majority. If I understand well, Honourable Speaker, there is a way in which the executive communicates with this House on their treatment of any bills that have been passed by this House. So the authority to tell us with certainty whether the bills that we've passed here have been assented to or have been brought back with memoranda from the President should be the Chair, the Speaker of the House. So that clarification should come to all of us via communication from your Chair, if in fact the Executive has treated those two bills in the manner in which we are hearing them. Because this is just now a conversation in the House, but an official communication should come through you on how the Executive has dealt with those two bills. I thank you, Honourable Chair.
So let's await the formal communication. Before we proceed to the next order, Senator Boni, the matter will be communicated formally and officially. Let us not extend it beyond that. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, we all stood there and we swore to uphold and defend the Constitution and therefore the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, I don't have to remind any colleague here. It is clear how a bill becomes law. So if after 14 days, no communication came from you that the DORA bill had not been assented to, automatically it stands assented to. And this is why I need this clarification, Mr. Speaker.
So, Senator Boni, I think I've indicated that a formal communication in that regard shall be made. Before we proceed to the next order, allow me to make this communication. Senator Mogeni and Senator Kavindo, kindly take your seats. Now, honorable senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, 12 Hansard officers from the county assemblies of Kisumu and West Pokot. The officers are undertaking a capacity building program on information technology in the production of parliamentary Hansard at the Center for Parliamentary Studies. Honorable senators, on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish them a fruitful visit. I thought I saw the senator for Kisumu in the House. In his absence, I will allow the senator for Migori to extend a word of welcome.
This is hard one. Mr. Speaker, as you can hear from the background complaints from the senator of Homa Bay that Migori is far from Kisumu, which means that he would have desired to, welcome the amazing delegation from Kisumu. It's only that even though Homa Bay is far from Kisumu, is closer to Kisumu, it seems that Homa Bay is very far from Parliament. The senator from Homa Bay was a bit late, but that is that is fine. We are very happy that you are here with us. This is the upper house by virtue and valor of Parliament, and you've seen as much as possible how this house has risen to the occasion of the challenges that we are facing as a nation, to the extent that some sobriety is coming back to our country as a function of this house. There's a lot to learn from this house. I want to wish you well in your stay here. And in the normal tradition of this house, when you come like this, there is a formal welcome, and then there is an informal welcome, in which I'll invite the senator of Kisumu, as well as the senator of Homa Bay. And because Kericho is also very close to Kisumu, I'll invite the senator for Kericho to do a better informal welcome, where the great senator of Homa Bay will show the best of his generosity. I thank you and welcome you. Thank you so much.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion, the current state of the nation.
We are deferring that particular motion. Yes, Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Chair, there was one senator who had not spoken, if I heard the majority leader. I don't know what is the plan for that one senator who has not spoken.
Now, Senator Mungatana, you know you cannot stand on a point of order. You want to inform the chair? Just proceed with the clarification. You may proceed, Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot inform the chair because it is full of wisdom. However, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to correct the point that only one senator had not spoken. Mr. Speaker, I was away on Pan-African Parliament duty where we were able to represent our nation, and Professor Kamar also was with me together with the others. So, Mr. Speaker, if it would please you, we would want to say one or two things in very short time, myself and Professor Kamar, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. In that regard, therefore, I will allow the three honorable senators to make the intervention on this motion. Thereafter, the motion will stand deferred.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I watched with a lot of pride at the way the House was conducting this motion a few days ago when we were representing our country in the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people were worried that something will go wrong in the country, but we were at pains to explain to the continent of Africa and the members of Parliament, 5 from each country, that our country will be able to overcome the challenge. And Mr. Speaker, at the end of it, the democratic credentials of Kenya across Africa has risen high because of these very actions that took place while we are away. Mr. Speaker, my contribution is only one, and I didn't want to repeat what a lot of honorable members have spoken onto. But Mr. Speaker, many, many years ago, at the birth of this nation, it was very painful. People lost lives. The country was unstable. But it was at that time that people were fighting for the first liberation of this country so that the Kenyan people would be free. And that was the first generation of liberation for our country. Mr. Speaker, many years later, our people also sacrificed a lot to fight for the first generation rights. And Mr. Speaker, these were things like expanding the democratic space, ending detention without trial, expanding the rights, personal rights and freedoms, which at the end of it, Mr. Speaker, culminated in the obtaining of a new constitution. That was the second liberation. So, Mr. Speaker, it was again, this time round, other people, another generation, which was fighting its own liberation, which to me, Mr. Speaker, is the third liberation for this country. And Mr. Speaker, I know some things didn't go very right because a lot of property was destroyed, lives were lost, but we shouldn't lose the fact that there is a point that is being raised by this generation, and which is this point, Mr. Speaker. In the first liberation, people never asked what is happening in the treasury. In the first liberation, Mr. Speaker, the focus was we need independence. In the second liberation, again, people never asked what is happening in the treasury. The question was, we want our human rights back. We want our right to associate, our right to freedom of expression. They never asked the question, what is happening in the treasury? In this liberation that was led by our young people, our own children, Mr. Speaker, the question is being asked, what is happening at the treasury? And although many things went wrong, we need not to lose the focus that the question is, what is happening in the treasury? Mr. Speaker, this question, we must really not lose focus on it. Our children are asking, why are we collecting taxes? Why is the Auditor General saying that in the period between 2021 up to now, we have borrowed 1.1 trillion, there are no projects? The question is being asked, where are the roads? The question is being asked, how is this process of making budget that is continuously loading on us and the results we are not seeing? So, Mr. Speaker, in our discussion in this motion, and I will be very brief, I pray that we do not lose focus on the light that has been shown on Treasury. Mr. Speaker, Treasury interacts with the figures of budget for a whole year. As this budget cycle is ending, the new budget cycle starts. Treasury is the one that brings these proposals. Mr. Speaker, I remember very well that the first proposal was that the budget in Kenya had gone to 4.2 trillion. And Mr. Speaker, they were then asked, we cannot raise this money because KRA was projecting 3.4 trillion from ordinary revenues. So they were told, go and cut. They came back with 3.9 trillion. Still, Mr. Speaker, $500 million or 0.5 trillion was still in deficit. And therefore the Finance Act, the finance bill that became controversial was brought to try and bolster those revenues. But Mr. Speaker, looking at the proposed tax cuts, the proposed reduction in government expenditures, it seems, Mr. Speaker, in that treasury, Mr. Speaker, it needs a lot of changes. There's need to be a new thinking in that treasury, Mr. Speaker. The people who are working there, they look at this budget as something they do every day. It's a normal thing. They don't really care, Mr. Speaker, about the issues of the people. And I know the public anger went to our colleagues in the National Assembly. But Mr. Speaker, how long do they interact with those figures? The real issue is with Treasury. Mr. Speaker, they take a whole year preparing those figures. And in that year, Mr. Speaker, they still come up with figures while the demonstrations were on. Business Daily is saying there's 803 million that has been set aside for new cars for the president, the deputy president, the prime cabinet secretary. It is Treasury, Mr. Speaker, that was doing that. And these people, they see it is normal that when a cabinet is appointed, we should bring new seats, new cars, new furniture. It's a normal thing for them. The kind of thinking that is not critical. People, you know, they tell you a renovation of a building that was bought for this amount, almost twice the amount for renovation. Mr. Speaker, there's a problem in that treasury. And they have convinced the people of Kenya that it is not their problem, it is the problem of the National Assembly who are supposed to pass those figures. And yet those figures, they interact with them for a very short while. Mr. Speaker, there is a problem in that treasury. And if this revolution or these demonstrations or these questions that are being asked are not focused on changes in that treasury, Mr. Speaker, the youth will not have had their answers. Mr. Speaker, that treasury, there are people who have stayed there all their lives. From the time they were employed, the promotions they got, they have never moved until they are now very senior people. The way they made the budgets in 1980 is the way they want to do the same way they want to do it in 2024. That they will still buy a lot of food for entertainment, flowers, while outside here, they would be, you know, ignoring the issues that go to the core of the people. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that there is a need to look at that treasury, Mr. Speaker. And if the president is going to listen to what the Senate is saying, one of the things he should pick is that we need to bring fresh thinking into that treasury. We need to sack people in that treasury, particularly the senior people in that treasury. We need to bring people in their 30s, in their 40s, who have probably served in their private sector. People who are coming out to think differently, people who will process these figures that are brought to members of parliament rather late on time. people who will be given that authority to do what needs to be done to this country. Mr. Speaker, we have a central bank, again, that thinks the same way it was thinking years ago. The same stuff, they were there years ago. Young people are not getting opportunities in those areas, Mr. Speaker. Just like Treasury, young people are not there. If you go there, Mr. Speaker, the senior people, all of them are people who have climbed over the years. There's no fresh thinking. There are no new ideas. And I'm telling you, I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that next year they will be buying new cars again. There will be a budget for flowers. There will be a budget for, somebody here was saying, fuel cards of hundreds of thousands. Mr. Speaker, as we look introspectively, I think we need to sweep the house called Treasury. We need to drain that swamp, Mr. Speaker. We need to bring new people into that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. In the finance department, we need new ideas. We need a fresh thinking about that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. When people refuse to change, then change must change them. What the young people have shown us is that they have capacity to ask questions and think outside the box. These are the people that we need in that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. People who will stand and tell us, you don't need 20 security people walking with you. What are you afraid of? Mr. Speaker, we need to rationalize everything. And this can be done only by somebody who is from outside. Somebody who will look inside that Treasury with a clean eye, a fresh eye. A young person who would say, it doesn't make sense to do this and this. It didn't need people to go and riot, Mr. Speaker, for these points to be understood. We need fresh people to go inside there. And Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that Professor Njuguna Ndung'u must go. The head of Treasury there must go. The head of finance, they must go. The director of budget, they must go. Because these are the people, Mr. Speaker, who interacted with these figures, ridiculous figures. 803 million for cars for 3 offices, Mr. Speaker, for a whole year. And then they bring them to members of parliament to crucify them here. Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. And that Treasury also, Mr. Speaker, as we drain the swamp and the changes that need to be done, we also need to ask the national cohesion to look into that Treasury. Mr. Speaker, counties like Tana River County, continuously over the years, you will find a budget line of water, there's nothing. A budget line of tarmac roads, there's nothing. 5 years, 6 years. Why? Because we don't have any people in that Treasury who are involved in the budget making process. Mr. Speaker, we need, as we drain this swamp, to have a clear indication where are these employees of Treasury coming from in terms of where their counties are from. Mr. Speaker, you will come to be shocked that if the National Cohesion Committee here is to give you the figures, many people will be coming from certain areas. And it is those certain areas that are given the bulk of the cake of this country, Mr. Speaker. So we have to answer to these questions that are being raised in Treasury, Mr. Speaker. Treasury is the biggest culprit in this whole thing. Treasury is the one that was going to burn this country because they are bringing wrong figures, putting wrong priorities, and telling us, go and borrow, go and borrow, go and borrow, and telling us there's no other way. And Mr. Speaker, most of the times, members of parliament, when they're interacting with this, they have faith in those people who are advising them. And the experts are the people who are in Treasury. But when you look, Mr. Speaker, the kind of advice, when you start studying those figures, Mr. Speaker, we have a very big problem in that Treasury. Treasury has been a big letdown. Treasury is the one that has been advising us, even for the division of labor, the division of revenue. They were denying the counties money. Mr. Speaker, Treasury has a problem. And before we resolve this problem, we will never solve the problems of this country. Mr. Speaker, all the senior officials in that treasury, they are as guilty as everybody who doesn't wish this country well. So, Mr. Speaker, I pray one of the recommendations should be to sweep that treasury clean. New people to come in, to look at our processes and to deal with these matters that has been raised by our young people with an open mind, Mr. Speaker. People to be told the truth that we can't make budgets like 1980s. You still come to make the same budget in 2020s, Mr. Speaker. Things have to change, and I think this liberation must be domiciled in that treasury. All the questions that are being asked are to do with money. And Treasury, Mr. Speaker, is very guilty. They have kept quiet. They are not saying anything. Treasury is very guilty. They are the ones who know where our debts are. They are the ones who have held all those secrets. Treasury, Mr. Speaker, must be cleaned. Treasury must be cleaned, Mr. Speaker. And even if we do all these changes, we change ministers, we change whoever, we appoint committees, multi-sectoral, what if Treasury is not changed, Mr. Speaker? They will still come back with the same advice to the president next year, and this problem will not go away. So I laud the young people for fixing their eye and focusing on the questions of money to define the third liberation. My appeal is that they shouldn't go to the extent of being blamed again because of destruction of property and killing, and the killings that come with the resistance and everything. What should happen is let them focus the questions they have risen about Treasury, Mr. Speaker. Treasury. The changes must, from central bank, I know they have security of tenure, but we make these laws, we can make them again. The governor, his deputy, the deputy directors, all the central bank, it needs to be drained. The CS Treasury, the deputies, and everybody, they all need to go, Mr. Speaker. We need new people who are dealing with things with new eyes. If we don't fix the Treasury, Mr. Speaker, this third liberation will have failed. And we will have let down our people, our young people who are in our houses, because all of them are asking the same question. Treasury. What can we do to clean this treasury? And Mr. Speaker, we need a fresh start. And I would be one of those people who would be so happy to see changes happening in that treasury, Mr. Speaker. You can't have people staying in the same ministry 20 years. What do we expect? They will bring us the same budget they were doing in 1990. The same thinking they were having in 1980. It's the same thing they will come to tell us, and they will come there with figures, and you don't know. You cannot look at a 40-page document within 1 week and make very good suggestions. You'll be told, that road of yours is there, that bridge is there, so support this document. And that's what people do. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, they take the blame, while Treasury, Mr. Speaker, are the ones who know what is happening. Mr. Speaker, we need to focus and I hope the people will make suggestions, and this Senate, as we summarize what we are presenting as our thinking, the question of Treasury, Mr. Speaker, will be central, because these are the people who have been letting us down, Mr. Speaker. Treasury, we need to drain the swamp at the Treasury. This is the whole issue about the demonstrations, about the questions our young people are asking. Mr. Speaker, I support that motion. Thank you.
Senator Professor Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this motion, and to thank you and the leader of majority and leader of minority for allowing time for us to ventilate on what is going on in our country. Mr. Speaker, I was in South Africa with the Senator Mungatana, but we were not able to rest without watching you in this Senate. So we kept going back to the records in the evening to make sure that we are with you. And I want to thank senators because I felt extremely proud to be a senator in this time because of the contributions from these members of the Senate. I really felt happy that at least we are holding the bull by the horns, as they call it, and this Senate has made all of us proud by the contributions that they have made. Mr. Speaker, I will not therefore repeat some of the things that have been done. I will just capture a few areas. I'm a member of the Education Committee, and I will touch something on the education, the issues that were highlighted by our youth. But before I say that, Mr. Speaker, I want to condole with the families that lost their loved ones in this demonstration, and pray that God gives them peace and comfort at this very difficult time. Our youth, Mr. Speaker, questioned our taxation vis-a-vis our application of the taxes that we have. And they actually made us think. As I listened to the senators, I said, it looks like it had to take the Gen Zs for us to actually think about how we apply our taxation. And I think this was really timely, and it is time that we actually discuss ourselves and question ourselves about even how we spend within Parliament itself. I will touch on the education sector, Mr. Speaker. And in touching with in the education sector as raised by Gen Zs who have gone to school and have not been employed, the challenges of going through school are still real in this country. In the year 2003, Mr. Speaker, basic education in Kenya was supposed to be free. It was declared by Parliament that it was going to be free. But basic education in Kenya is from primary to secondary, up to the Form 4 level. But has it been free? We need to ask ourselves, has it been free? Because that was one sector that was supposed to have been taken care of by our taxation. And this would have made everybody happy if our tax was used to give everybody this human right called education up to the basic education level. Then people would have gone to look for training and would have moved on. But this has not been the case, and this is why our youth are saying our parents have struggled. They have paid right from primary school, secondary school, after university, and we have no jobs. This time that we re-looked at that, Mr. Speaker, because Kenya has endorsed a lot of agreements, both international and continental, as far as education is concerned. In fact, in the year 2008, free secondary education was pronounced by the then President Kibaki, and we are supposed to have free day secondary education. But today we know that there is a lot of payment that is being done. Are these legal, and can they be stopped so that actually we can have fairness as far as basic education is concerned? I dare say, Mr. Speaker, that fairness in basic education, since education is a right, would enable everybody to be able to move on with in their lives when they go for skill development. But as long as we have any fees being paid, we cannot call it a human right, because it means it is those who are able who will have their children moving in education. Mr. Speaker, I will never forget your speech when I joined. This kind of discrimination.
Increasing food production by reducing the cost of farm inputs, thereby lowering the cost of food and lowering the cost of living. We have stabilized the economy by preventing what was an imminent debt default. We have stabilized fuel prices, lowered inflation to an all-record low of 4.6%, and we have stabilized the foreign exchange regime. We have implemented radical changes in the education sector, including resolving the CBC question, we have rolled out a new student-focused higher education funding model that has special emphasis on making sure that children from vulnerable families have the requisite support in their education. We have also improved the student-teacher ratio in both our primary and secondary schools by hiring an additional 56,000 teachers and also hiring an additional 2,000 tutors for our TVET institutions. We have equally resolved bottlenecks in cash transfer program to vulnerable Kenyans, including orphans, people living with disability, and the elderly. We have not only brought on board more beneficiaries, but in keeping with the promise that we made, it is now not the case, as it was in the past, that these vulnerable Kenyans have to wait for months. Now their stipends are paid as salaries of public servants are being paid. We did roll out the Hustler Fund that today it's 2 million Kenyans. And we have 7 million Kenyans who had been denied access to financial services by credit reference bureaus. They are now off the blacklisting roll. Our affordable housing program has now more than 100,000 housing units under construction. The first cohort I will be launching in a couple of months to new homeowners. And we have 160,000 young people across Kenya that are employed under this program. To expand manufacturing, value addition, and agro-processing as a key contributor to job creation, 18 county aggregation and industrial parks and 6 new special economic zones are under construction across Kenya. And at the same time, we have 200 fresh produce markets that are at various stages of construction to support our farmers with access to markets for their produce, in keeping with the commitment we made to our mama mbogas. To accelerate manufacturing, last year we imposed levies on importation of clinker that can be manufactured in Kenya. We made a saving of Kenya shillings 20 billion in foreign exchange as imports of clinker dropped to almost zero. We also imposed levies on imported steel billets. And today, we have 11 steel factories that 6 years ago were closed. They have started operation, hiring 16,000 Kenyans. And last year alone, we saved 120 billion shillings in foreign exchange as a result of this intervention. Our digital transformation agenda is also on course with 17,000 government services online, while we have 274 digital hubs across Kenya with 152,000 students and digital workers in our TVETs and also in digital hubs in different parts, up and running and giving young people an income. Our universal health coverage plan has already onboarded 107 community health promoters and the process of registration for our social health insurance fund is ongoing, and for those on its way to launch on the new date of 1st of October 2024, that will make it possible for every Kenyan to have a health insurance, and for those suffering from critical illnesses to have access to the critical illness fund, making it possible for every Kenyan to have access to treatment without the burden of having to fund it. On the measures I announced last week, barring state and public officers from engaging in Harambes, I want to inform the country that the public fundraising appeals bill is now ready for publication tomorrow. However, even with the progress we have made, I am acutely aware that the people of Kenya have very high expectations of me. And they believe that this administration can undertake the most extensive transformation in our nation's history. Recent events that necessitated the withdrawal of the finance bill, which will require a review and reorganization of our budget and fiscal management, have brought us to an inflection point. Upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have today, in line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the Cabinet Secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. And of course, the Office of the Deputy President is not affected in any way. I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government that will assist me in accelerating and expediting the necessary, urgent, and irreversible implementation of the program that we have, including other radical measures and programs to deal with the burden of debt, to explore raising domestic resources and revenues, expanding job opportunities, eliminating wastage and unnecessary duplication of a multiplicity of government agencies, and slaying the dragon of corruption, consequently making the government of Kenya lean, inexpensive, effective, and efficient. During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted under the guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials. I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course. Thank you very much, and God bless our great country, Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Well, if you're just joining us, that is breaking news all the way from State House Nairobi, where the president has just stated that he has dismissed all his cabinet secretaries and the office of the Attorney General until they can make a decisive decision in the coming days, except the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is led by Musalia Mudavadi, who also acts as the Diaspora Cabinet Secretary. And the secretary to the cabinet has not been affected as well. The president added further that the office of the deputy president has not been affected by this latest move. If you're just joining